Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for Software Quality and Beer. I am here with my partner in crime, Matt Kubal.
Hello,
Matt,
Bob.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Good having you, man. Hope life is treating all of you well. So I got to be honest with you, Matt and I, it's like we were thinking, what are we going to talk about today? And then we came up with a bit of an idea because Matt has really come up with a great idea, really cool topic for a presentation. Before we dive right into it though, I want to thank Mike and Erin here at Thirsty Buffalo in Odessa, Florida. If any of you happen to live in the area, be in the area, come by and check it out. Great selection of beers, NAs, and all of that good stuff, energy drinks. Matt, what are you drinking today, by the way?
It's called Boyoyoing. It's a Caribbean porter.
Say that again?
A Boyoyoing?
Yeah, I heard you the first time. I just wanted to hear you say it again. So I'm drinking Trailmaker, a really nice pale ale. But hey, again, thanks for joining us. So Matt, share with everybody the topic that's really cool, because you've been doing some really neat stuff for Checkpoint Technologies.
Yeah. The idea is really through AI, which every conversation becomes AI now. Through AI, you can sort of more easily change tools from what you're using currently to another tool. You know, in the past that involved thousands and thousands of hours of, well, how are we going to scope which part of this? You know, how are we going to translate each of our tests over, or each of the pieces of our code one by one, or what the approach is. And these days, you can really make that process a whole lot faster with AI. So we have clients that want to move from one tool to the other. And the presentation we're looking at is here's how you can do that sort of thing, right? You scope it out. You not only do you have the AI sort of analyze what's there and decide an approach on how to shift things over, but also at the same time you can get rid of a lot of the cruft that you've built up over the years, or maybe bad practices that you were doing as part of your existing framework.
Okay.
So a lot of times you end up doing sort of hacky things to, it's a temporary permanent patch to make things work, and so that can fix those things as well along the way. But so the process is kind of AI ingests your entire framework, and it's all code. A lot of times it's code because people are moving from one open source tool to the other, and maybe moving from one language to another. And so long as it's a modern language, the AI understands it all, and it's able to ingest that pretty quickly because code is relatively small. You're not talking about trying to look at images or anything like that. So you can get away with thousands and thousands of lines of code being read in pretty quickly and understood by an AI pretty quickly, and so that can get sort of
defined
out
quickly, like within just seconds, few minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Tens of thousands of lines, a few minutes, right?
Okay.
Depending on what you're using to do that, but some models are obviously better than others. But so there are tools out there that will also work in your file system, so you're not even having to cut and paste things into your own code base. You just have it write directly to the code base. So we have clients that are needing to do that, wanting to do that, shifting tools, and you can point the AI at it and say, how should we do this, and what's the best sort of methodology. And of course you got to review it all because it's never perfect, that's for sure. But it takes out a lot of the hard work, like the hundreds and thousands of hours you would spend, say, translating Java to JavaScript.
Right.
You don't have to do that anymore. You just, you have the AI do that for you, and you sort of check it as you go and make sure it's outputting the correct things based on the inputs. So,
and you're spending a lot less time reviewing it for correctness than you are creating it from scratch, right? I mean,
yeah. I mean, it's more about reviewing than really creating it. It's more like you're guiding what's happening, and you're making sure that it's doing things the way you want it to be done, and that you understand what it's doing. Because that's also important. Because if you just say, hey, translate this all over, right? It'll probably do it, and it probably won't work, but it'll put out something that looks reasonable. But even if it did work, like even if it one-shotted your translation from one tool to the next,
Okay.
You wouldn't understand it. So it'd be
Right.
hard for you to maintain it. It would be hard for you to add new test cases. You wouldn't understand what had been done. So you do. It is still an iterative process. You say, hey, here are these Java files, and we've translated them over to these files instead. We've combined these methods together because you all had created multiples for whatever reason. While you were creating your test cases, you decided, oh, I need this other path, and in reality that should just be a flag that sends you down the correct path in your test case. But you created another one out of convenience sake, and so now you've got this, you're sort of creating this maintenance nightmare as you go with your existing framework. And so you can sort of collapse all that down into a smaller, more manageable code base.
Okay. Interesting.
And so the other part of that, though, is that there are testing tools out there now that have AI healing.
Right.
And so, you can be on an open source tool and still be stuck trying to manage all of your objects or whatever and define those and pick out XPaths and stuff. And you run your tests and half of them blow up, right? Well, you got to go manually figure all those out.
Sure.
But there are tools out there where, as you run your tests, it can go out and look at what your application looks like and says, okay, this is the object you're looking for. Let me go ahead and self-heal that. So you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. Like you've been able to jump from your maybe like open source thing to another tool that can self-heal, and that self-healing is keeping you from the majority of your maintenance, which was the objects changing every single time.
Okay.
Every run through, right? You'd have a bunch of failures.
So in what you're putting together, the presentation, what do you feel like perhaps the top 2 or 3 takeaways? So once we start sharing that with all of you, and we're trying to figure out if we're going to do a webinar, doing it at conferences, might be a combination of both. But what would you say will be the 2 or 3 biggest takeaways? And if you're still working on that, that's a fair answer.
Yeah. I guess the biggest takeaway is that it can be done. I think there's still a lot of people that don't understand how capable AI tools are, right? And so they see it as just chatbots.
Yes.
That's a lot of what they see.
Yes.
And so they don't really understand that, hey, you can point an AI at your 10 megabyte code base and say, hey, I need this to be in this tool instead, or JavaScript to Python or whatever, right? It understands all that, and it can translate that.
Yeah.
And so it can write it all for you, and then you can just kind of run it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the biggest takeaway, is this is very possible now.
Yeah.
And you don't have to, if you have capable people on staff and you can make use of those tools, you can do this. You can change tools, and it's not as big of a headache as it was before.
Right.
It's not a year-long process of scoping out how you're going to do it. I mean, you could spend an afternoon and have a pretty good working prototype of how you're going to move from one to the next.
Yeah, it's because one of the things that you've demonstrated, because Matt here, I don't want him to get a big head, but he was always just an exception. You've always been an exceptionally productive engineer, test engineer. Because remember, that's what Checkpoint Technologies does. But I'll tell you, ever since embracing, and that's what you've done, you've embraced AI instead of resisting it, you've learned how to use it to make yourself even more productive.
Right.
And so often we're hearing about people expressing fear whether or not they're going to lose jobs. AI, in my opinion, is definitely going to have an impact on the job market.
Yeah.
But what you need to do is learn, like Matt, how to embrace it and show how you can provide even more value to your customers, to your clients, to your employer, etc.
Yeah, it makes you more efficient, and you can either choose to embrace that or stick your head in the mud and do everything manually.
Yeah.
You got to get out there and figure it out. I know plenty of people who are refusing for one reason or another. They're too busy or whatever. And it's like, well, you'd be less busy if you found some ways to integrate AI into your your workflow. So,
Yeah. I mean, I had a conversation just today with one of our partners, Cobaton, on the mobile testing side. And then I've had numerous conversations with folks at Inflectra about AI, their solutions utilizing AI and testing AI. And they're seeing more and more of demand because developers are using AI, so there's more code being created.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, for sure. It's
right.
I think the studies are showing that the code, they're outputting code faster, obviously, but the rate of defects is still just as high.
Right.
And so it's like now you have 10x the code, but you also have 10x the defects, essentially.
Yeah.
So it's not making things necessarily better or worse, and maybe that'll change in the future. Maybe AI gets significantly better at coding. I'm sure some people would
I
argue
think it'll
that,
keep getting better. I would imagine, I would think.
But I think the interesting thing in the testing realm, everybody's always asking, what are you doing for AI? Like, how can I use this for my testing? And I think everybody's kind of feeling that out. But as far as automation goes, it feels like a real, actual, useful, thing for AI is to do the self-healing, right?
Okay.
And so you're not having to maintain your objects and go out there and look at your screen and say, which one is it? Which object is it? Go back and fix the object, or suggest a fix to your object.
Yep.
And you can say, okay, cool, let's do that.
Yeah.
So you're not having to maintain as many objects and things like that. So that's a point where it actually seems useful.
Yeah.
As opposed to a lot of just like, it'll generate your test cases for you and stuff like that. And a lot of that's sort of garbage in, garbage out. But the rubber meets the road where you're running your tests and the objects are failing because they've been changed by the developer, faster development cycles, and your testing framework is able to deal with objects changing and update those objects as you go. And that's an actual useful reason to have AI in place.
Yeah. Nice.
So.
Nice. Well, so I know one of the things we're trying to figure out is, we're going to do this on a webinar. Are webinars even still popular? We'd love for you all to let us know.
I don't think so.
Conferences, how are we going to do this? But be on the lookout for it. But all of you are getting the very first highlight preview of Matt's presentation. It's going to be great, and it's going to provide value. Thank you again so much for joining us. Thank you to Thirsty Buffalo. If you happen to see us at QA or the Highway on June 12th in Columbus, Ohio, come say hi. Then in September, I don't know the exact date, shame on me, for Star West. But again, thank you everybody. Thank you, Matt Kubal.
Cheers.
Bye everybody, cheers.